Hey, it's Carl. Thanks for tuning in. In this video, I want to talk about some of the biggest challenges that you can potentially face as an artist, and I'm talking specifically about visual artists. So probably one of the biggest ones is cash flow. So in the beginning, trying to round up some money to buy supplies, paints, anything to paint your canvas on, like your stands and your canvases. All those products require money, of course. And if you're not selling work to begin with, which is generally the case, you're not when you first start out, it requires money. So one of the things that you can do, and it's one of the things that I first started many years ago, is start selling things that are not bolted down around the house. And if you look around the house, you can see a lot of things that you say, well, I don't necessarily need that anymore. And in this day and age, you can sell, of course, on eBay. So go out and sell all those items on eBay and you'll start to derive some money from it. And with that money, you want to put that money straight back into purchasing new supplies. You want to keep that momentum going. Put the money back into your business as an artist, because if you have too many gaps, that's when you start to get lethargic, you start to lose belief in regards to what you're doing, and you simply lose momentum. So you want to keep putting money back into your developing your craft, and to do that, you need the supplies. So don't focus too much on trying to sell your art to begin with. If you are short on money, just go try and find some ways to actually derive some money elsewhere. As I mentioned, just go around, find things, sell them, and put that money straight back into buying supplies and keep that momentum going. Another big thing is insecurity. It's not an uncommon thing. A lot of artists have insecurity. It's not believing that they're actually good enough. And the fact is you are good enough, and you just need to be able to focus on what you're doing. Even if it sounds kind of selfish, just focus on what you're doing for yourself in regards to creating to begin with, because that's how you'll develop your craft. You need to really separate yourself from believing that there's an audience out there that you need to please. So just focus on developing your craft and forget about how you have to please somebody else, because that will come naturally. People will start to absorb your work and feel a desire to want to own it. And that's because you've taken the time to develop what you're doing. So don't worry about feeling insecure, because every artist does. But to avoid that, don't think too much about the result. Just focus on actually keeping it wholesome and working on it and developing your skill. That's what you want to focus on, and it will evolve. Ideas. That's probably another big one in regards to constantly coming up with ideas. Probably the quickest way or the easiest way to be able to narrow down on that is to actually pick a niche or a passion that you have. Like, for example, when I first started, I just focused on music. So I was painting abstract paintings that had the subject of music in it, and from there it developed. So I didn't have to run around and try and think of what's an idea that I can come up to paint with. Just focus on one idea. So one example could be horses. Maybe you got a passion for horses. Just focus on different angles, different ways of actually producing the work. It could be abstract. You could be doing sort of more still life paintings, but just play with that topic or that niche and develop your skill from there. So that way you don't have to sit there and think about, okay, what am I going to paint today? Because that just chews up too much of your energy. You just want to narrow down on something that you love, you're passionate about, that you can actually absorb a lot of your time and energy into. Another big challenge is criticism, and probably my biggest tip for that is you're not actually making art for an audience. So don't focus too much on how you're actually producing work to get a result to keep somebody else happy or please an audience. You want to be developing your craft for the sake of developing your craft. So keep a mindset when you're working. The mindset should be that you actually want to keep it wholesome and keep developing. That's not to say that you shouldn't go and show your work. By all means, go and show your work, because sometimes you actually get some really good feedback, and it can be actually really productive feedback that you can get. Don't take anything too personally, because people have opinions, and you have opinions of things that people don't like as well. So don't really absorb too much of that feedback, but take a few from here, a few from there, and incorporate that into your work, because some of them are actually really good ideas, and you may even get some feedback from other artists which you want to incorporate, because that will help you develop as well. So in terms of criticism, don't worry about it too much. You're going to get it regardless of whether you paint or whether you're actually driving in your car and someone says, you know, move over, you're hogging up the lane. So there's always going to be people out there that are going to give you criticism. Produce for the sake of producing art and develop your craft. Selling your art is another challenge for artists as well, and maintaining consistency in terms of selling your art. Now, when you're first starting, probably what I would recommend is don't focus too much on trying to sell your work online. What you want to do is actually develop your salesmanship. And to do that, you should actually go and invite yourself to one of the local art shows, enroll for one, put your name down and actually get your work in front of people so that you're working face to face with people, boots to the ground. You're actually getting direct feedback. And from there, you'll start to assess in regards to the value of your work. Time also can be another big challenge for artists as well, particularly if you're still working your 9-to-5 job. I do have a video on this, and you can actually go watch that video. There should be a link down below. What you have to do is just create time. You have to actually manufacture that time for yourself, and whether it's a matter of getting up earlier or working later in the night without exhausting yourself, but you have to actually start to create time outside of the conventional time. And what you need to do is just monitor that as well. How well are you utilizing your time, and actually measure it. And in the video that I actually produced in an earlier series, you'll start to see how you can actually start to find where you're actually wasting a lot of time, because you can't actually manage time. You can only manage your own energy around time. Time's always going to tick away. So with the time principle, you do have time. You just need to make sure that you're actually creating your own time, whether that means getting up earlier in the morning or working later into the night. It does exist. One thing is to always focus on your strengths. You don't want to be susceptible to believing too much in your weaknesses. Everybody has weaknesses, and what's actually going to push you forward as an artist is just to focus on your strengths. If you have the ability if you're motivated to get there in front of the canvas and actually produce the work, regardless of whether you're happy with the work or not, that is a strength. So you want to make sure, okay, that's the strength that I've got. I'm motivated to keep producing, to keep working. I'm also motivated to talk to people about my art. I'm also motivated in regards to finding ways to actually finance the suppliers of my art. So focus on those strengths that you've got, and you know what they are. So just make sure you narrow down on those, and just don't think too much about your weaknesses, because you can't actually produce really good results if you're just focusing on your weaknesses all the time. Focus on those strengths and you'll actually start to move forward a lot quicker. One thing to remember is that people will follow you if they can see that you really care about what you're doing. If they can see that you're not actually producing things to make somebody else happy or to produce a result, or if you're actually trying to please an audience all the time, they will follow you naturally. And from that, you'll start to get a lot of interest in your work. So the key points are to make sure that you're focusing on producing a really good result, and that's a really good product, and that's what I mean. And just keep focusing on putting a lot of passion into what you do. As I mentioned, that people will eventually follow you, and it becomes a natural progression, because they become inspired by what you're doing, whether it's what you're doing on the canvas, or whether it's something that you're saying, whatever your message is, whatever your story is. People will start to follow you, and you've got to believe in that for yourself, and that will motivate you and give you that dedication to get up and stand in front of the canvas and keep producing work at a consistent level. And that's the main thing. You just keep doing it one step at a time, and it's just one day, then the next day, then another day, and just keep doing it over and over and over and over. And eventually you'll start to create a following. You start to develop your skills. You'll also start to get a lot of input that is really handy in terms of producing really good work. The challenges are only there because for the most part, it's actually up here in terms of the mindset. So if you follow the principles that we've just gone through, you'll start to see that your mindset will start developing, and you'll start to believe in yourself more, which will develop the confidence and your ability to get up and actually keep working at what you want to do and what you ultimately love. And that's the reason why you're doing what you're doing. It's because you love doing it. You have a passion for it and you want to keep producing really good work for yourself because one, it keeps you happy and it gives you momentum throughout your life. So with the challenges, don't focus too much on the challenges. Focus on producing really good work. Don't focus on your weaknesses. Just maintain a focus on your strengths and you will move faster than you could ever imagine.